it seems like Disney is thinking about hiring Michael B. Jordan to play Hercules in a live-action adaptation of their 1997 animated movie. It says that despite not having much known about the overall story, they've confirmed filmmakers will be taking inspiration from TikTok to appeal to the modern teenage audiences.
I want to point out that both of these stories, I'm going to just say they're bullshit. I think they're both bullshit. And the reason I say that is because this Michael B. Jordan story, not the Zendaya one, we'll get to the Zendaya one. The Michael B. Jordan story is recycled from a 2021 article, and I'm actually kind of fascinated how these things find their way back to the public interest, because what it really is like somebody saw this headline.
A lot of it is
Twix,
the fact that the strike is ongoing and we don't have real news to talk about, so the fake news gets recycled.
So somebody on Twix reposted this, and I have because I just don't sit there and argue with people on Twitter or really care enough. I saw this article start to recirculate, and I was like, I almost went in and was like, this is from 2021. This is not true.
Not important enough.
But the point is these topics become hotbeds for argument and discussion, because it really does always come back to the problems with Disney casting and how much it ends up interesting the public.
Well, Taron Egerton was also reportedly in the running for Hercules, so it doesn't have to be a race swap. But this says that Michael B. Jordan has stated he would rather do something original. So if offered the role, he probably would prefer an original character with Hercules' abilities for his own story. Wow, original characters from Disney? Groundbreaking. Also, there are rumors that Zendaya is in the running to play a live-action adaptation of Moana, and they actually put her in an AI-generated fan trailer playing Moana.
That music is copyrighted. We can't play it.
We can't play it for you guys because we'll get demonetized or whatever. But this would also be a race swap if we're talking about that technically. She's obviously black. Moana is Hawaiian. So would people be mad about a race swap that is between two minorities? Or are you not allowed to be mad at that?
They would be mad that she's not Polynesian, so they would have a problem with it.
But she's still a minority, right?
There would be less pushback, but there would be pushback.
And she's also a former Disney child star, so I'm sure she's a favorite of theirs.
Yep.
I can't see her playing Moana just because of the age difference.
Yeah.
She's 26. Moana is like 14. So that doesn't make sense.
I mean, it's not...
But I know, like, we talked about Lilo and Stitch getting a live-action adaptation and how much just hemming and hawing there was about the casting for that, because they chose a girl who is not Hawaiian to play Lilo. To play Lilo's older sister.
Correct.
And then her love interest was also exposed for saying the N-word on Facebook in, like, 2013. So they had to fire him. There's just no way to do these things right. Make a new story instead of recycling old ones.
I actually don't think there would be a problem with Zendaya playing that role, but I just know.
Do you think people would get offended about it?
I do. I think a certain part of the internet would, but it wouldn't catch the news cycle the way it would if she was white, obviously, because it would be even more egregious. But it's
There's
not
just
like
no way to win when you're casting from an existing property. And this is also less than 10 years after Moana was released. So they're clearly scraping the bottom of the barrel for content instead of writing new stories or greenlighting new stories that I'm sure are constantly being pitched to them.
Yeah.
They don't get a chance. So, I mean, you're just running into problems that don't need to happen. Like outrage that doesn't need to be sparked by doing this, like by refusing to create new characters.
Mm-hmm. Casting for new characters would also give them the freedom to cast the stars that they want, rather than having to find a star with enough of a name that also fits into the demographic you're trying to pitch for a film. Mm-hmm.
And also, this is a lot of adults giving way too much of a damn what children like. Like, I found this awful Reddit thread that we were mentioning earlier about a white girl who happens to identify with Mulan, an Asian Disney princess, and there are adults who find this offensive and racist. This actually will give you cancer.
I mean, the person who cares about this, if you want to explain it here, but the person who cares about this doesn't care because they care about Disney or what kids like. They care because it has to do with race, gender, sexuality, and all the other buzzwords that adults these days have been told that they need to care about.
This says, woman takes offense at white 8-year-old comparing herself to an Asian Disney princess. So let me just read this out. Am I the a-hole for not correcting my daughter when she says she's just like Mulan because she is white? It says, my 8-year-old daughter is autistic and her favorite Disney princess is Mulan. Ever since she was little, she was completely obsessed with her. And whenever we asked why she was her favorite, she would always say how her and Mulan are just alike. And that being said, I can understand how it can sound when my daughter, who is not Chinese or of Asian descent, says that her and Mulan are just alike, because I know the context. I didn't see anything wrong with her wording it like that. I took my daughter on a play date with one of my coworkers and her daughter, and the subject of Disney princesses came up. My daughter, of course, used the opportunity to talk about her love of Mulan and their similarities. And my coworker gave me a funny look. After the two girls went off to play, my coworker asked why I allow my daughters to say things like that when it is obviously offensive. I explained the context behind my daughter's words, and my coworker said that I shouldn't let my daughter word it as such because others will find it offensive.
First of all, isn't Mulan, she's not a princess though, is she? I guess it's just the vernacular.
She's one of the Disney princesses, if you're thinking about it like that.
What it is it proves it proves their argument about representation wrong. That you don't actually have
that representation matters.
Yes.
If this white girl can feel represented by an Asian character, why would it be any different for an Asian 8-year-old girl to identify with a white Disney princess?
Yeah, exactly.
Both are entirely possible because, fortunately, 8-year-olds haven't yet been poisoned with this indoctrination about race.
Well, enough with single motherhood on the rise. It's going to start younger and younger.
Oh, and for additional context, that coworker is also white.
Yes.
So she is being offended on behalf of Asians everywhere. I'm sure she believes she's going to be rewarded for that in time, but she is, in fact, the a-hole in this situation.
Yeah, and most of to be fair to the chat or to the responses, most of them said that the other lady was the problem and not her. But it shows you the level of indoctrination to the public about how important it is that you're supposed to take race, gender, sexuality, and all these things. I always wonder why it stops there. To me, why would I feel like any of these characters is supposed to? Because this stuff was coming out about Jenna Ortega recently too, about not feeling Latina enough to represent her
She said
culture.
that?
And I just wonder, all the characters in my life that I've identified with weren't about identifying with them. It was about liking the character. Why do I need to identify with any of these characters at all?
Because pop culture
they make it seem as if
pop culture is a secular religion.
They make these things seem as if liking a character and feeling represented by a character are synonymous.
This is the same mental illness that makes people debate about what race Jesus was.
Yeah.
Completely missing the point that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That is not the point. And in this person's mind, I'm sure she thinks that this white 8-year-old girl should like Cinderella because she's white like me.
Yes.
And then the black girl should think that she likes Princess Tiana because she's black like me. Completely ignoring anything about their storylines, their characters, anything. Because that's not...
By that logic, you wouldn't... why does it stop at race? I wouldn't identify with almost any superhero because most of them have genius-level IQs and are in super good shape. I am neither! Right. Therefore, what does representation have to do with either of those things? It doesn't have anything to do with either of them. It makes no sense.
Ariel has a tail and I don't have a tail.
It's just weird Marxist identity politics
her.
that is designed to pull people apart from one another and not bring them together, which is sad because for a long time, look, growing up, my favorite athletes were Ken Griffey Jr. Am I supposed to not want to was I supposed to not want to swing a baseball bat the same way Ken Griffey Jr. did because I didn't look like him? Was I supposed to want to swing a baseball bat like Mark McGwire because Mark McGwire was white and Ken Griffey Jr. was black? Kick rocks with that knot. That's bullshit. It's stupid, and it's designed to destroy you. It's designed to destroy me. It's designed to tear down the fabric of this country with this Marxist bullshit, and it's attempts to prove everything the 90s did right, wrong, failing every step of the way, not realizing that all the things that people love go so much deeper than I'll never understand why it stops there. Why does it stop at race and gender? Why does it are billionaires only supposed to identify with billionaire characters? Is only Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos allowed to identify with Batman? What is to say that those, if you asked somebody like Jeff Bezos what aspect of his personality affects him more on a day-to-day basis, his skin color or his ridiculous amount of wealth, he's going to tell you it's his ridiculous amount of wealth. That's what affects his life more on a day-to-day basis.
Or really his answer depends on what's going to affect his ridiculous amount of wealth more.
Exactly. And it's just
which answers the question for you.
It's it really is one of those things where these topics, these arguments, these discussions were designed by very rich elites to keep us the plebs arguing with one another rather than pushing back on the bullshit going on in the real world. And the front lines of that is pop culture used as propagandistic distractions to the masses. So it breaks my heart also because when I think back to it, so many of the characters that I loved had nothing. Like we were talking on Friday, I said, "You see Blade?" He's like, "I loved Blade growing up." I was like, "Guess what? Me too." Director Phil looked more like Wesley Snipes than me. Guess what? Doesn't stop either of us from loving the character. And it just breaks my heart to see a bunch of rich, slimy, scumbag elitists and college professors pushing this on kids when the 8-year-olds in this story are the clear evidence that it's not necessary outside of political accelerationism.
That conversation about are the Disney princesses not bodily diverse enough? Are they too skinny for girls to identify with them and they give them self-image issues? That's also been disproven, but it's a purely academic discussion that doesn't matter to children.
And it's, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because then it pushes the kids to be more narcissistic. So now the next generation will not have the same sentiments we do. Like
with Me Too, if you constantly pester people into questioning whether or not they're victims, they're going to err on the side of thinking that they're victims. Just don't even entertain the idea. You'd be better off in life just not thinking of all of these things as trauma. The other part of this these stories is it proves that the idea of the original story is clearly the better idea, but the least, not the one that gets you the most attention. Therefore, they will never go for it. Eventually, we'll get live action, Encanto, and we'll get live action movies based on other characters, and good. And then we can see how those castings go. But wouldn't it be better to just see all these studios go that way? And just like I said, I'm more excited. Like when I watched Samaritan for a C- movie or a C, I'll give it a C+. It was a C+ movie at best, but it was original and none of the characters had any of the baggage that comes from these arguments happening. I would rather see this stuff. I am going to watch Bass Reeves, Lawman Bass Reeves, which is a show about the first ever black U.S. Marshal. I believe it just launched on Paramount Plus. Somebody else mentioned Tarzan. Yes, they will never race swap Tarzan. That will always stay the same. So you'll be he's safe.
You will be represented. Have no fear. If you who wrote that are white, you will be represented. Have no fear whatsoever about that. You'll still get that character.
Will they race swap? What was her name? Jane.
I have no idea.
Is that out of bounds?
Probably. I have no idea. It'd be funny if they did.
It's also this is besides the point, kind of, but the impulse to make everything animated into something live action is totally misguided because it takes all of the charm and creativity out of it by placing it in the real world, which is ugly and dull. And no one watches like Freedom Tunes and thinks, I can't wait to see this in the live action version.
Actually, I would love to see. He should have a skit called Freedom Tunes Live Action, where it's just they reenact skits from the.
But no one's asking for that, obviously.
I am now officially asking for it.
Except for you.
I am asking for Freedom Tunes live action. There's no excitement around
the medium makes the movie what it is. Yep. The medium of animation makes the characters who they are. That's important.
Yep, TV and movies were better back in the day. I'm watching this show called Shark with James Woods. And television was just so much better back in like 2000. Like Tim had a tweet over the weekend that said the 90s was the great decade. It was the last great decade. I said I don't have as much of a problem with 2000 through 2010.
Yeah.
Things got bad thereafter, but a lot of stuff that I loved came out between 2000 and 2010. And I was talking about it because I said, look, there was with those shows, I look at the stuff that gets made now. And I look at the dour tone that all of it takes, right? It's anti-human in a lot of ways. It's nihilistic in a lot of ways. I think that's indicative of the mindset of the writers. But there was a tone to television in the early 2010s. Now, I'm not talking about the Breaking Bads or of the world, right? Which are different. But if you were to turn on basic cable and watch a show, a lot of these shows had a glimmer of hope and humanity that you just don't seem to find because it's been replaced with snark and cynicism. I don't know when snark without charm became so popular, but it seems to be a writing crutch these days.
You can see that real time in any show that began in the early 2010s and ended in the late 2010s. Yeah. You can see that shift happening in real time.
Well, it's funny because that's a lot of show they're like, for instance, the show Covert Affairs with Piper Perabo. That show started with a very hopeful, if not naive, look, I believe, at U.S. foreign policy through the eyes of a strong, independent woman that don't need no man. Now, I love that show. I do. And that's not exactly true to say that. She actually gets saved more than a few times. And because her job in that show starts out with her first day as like a field agent in the CIA, you see her fall and mess up a lot. But by the time, so the show starts, it's got a catchy poppy theme song and it feels very like it was made for 2010s women.
Well, that was at a time when girl bossery wasn't necessarily attached with hating men.
But by the time...
with contempt.
The show didn't go the hating men route. But by the time the show ended, it's dour, it's bleak. There's no opening credit song anymore. It's just done, title scene. And it lost all of the charm because the people who created the show decided to change. Burn Notice did the same thing, and Burn Notice is one of my favorite shows of all time. Theme song changed, and the credit song changed in season 5, and that literally speaks to
they were like they got around a table and they were like, how can we make these shows less cool?
Well, no, I think that was the end result. But I think what happened was they said, how do we raise the stakes on something, not realizing that we didn't want the stakes to be raised.
True.
The stakes were fine how they're. I don't need to see what Bruce Campbell does with a serious spy show in second main role. I don't need that. Jeffrey Donovan had great comedic timing. I don't need to see a little bit of comedy and a lot more serious. Know your audience, know your tone, and people will come back. But I think that 2000 through 2010, that was the last great decade.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you on that.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.